Holy smokes, a viewer already? How is that even possible? Not mad, just asking. What is going on, everybody? All one of you so far. And the ones catching up later, of course. You're tuning into BP Hero Podcast. Season 6, Episode 43. If you've been here before, you know the deal. Hang out 10-ish minutes. Then let the crowd kind of build in here. Then we'll get started swinging away with the old podcast here. What's up, Jason? How you doing? So if you're catching this later, I'm not saying that there won't be beneficial information in the first 10 minutes of this podcast, but if you're wanting to get into specifically the podcast, you can skip ahead to the 10-ish minute mark. I will tell you that, because it starts kind of a slow burn. I have thought about starting the podcast like 8:50 and letting everyone that gets their notifications tune in, and then started at 9 o'clock. But I don't know. I've thought about a lot of things. I've also thought about posting a video sometime here recently, and you see how that's gone. There's Eric. Glad Eric is still my friend. This messenger app, or this Pages app. Adam, you're here. Hello, by the way. Do you use the Facebook Pages Page Manager app? This thing drives me nuts. I'll go through spurts where I won't get notifications, and then I'll go through spurts where it won't send pictures, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere it'll just start working again. And I also have a page set up for my brother's tree trimming business. I took care of all that for him, and since I'm an administrator of that page, just to kind of help him out with things, I also get his notifications. His notifications come through every time. Every message he gets, my phone gets. His page gets, my phone gets. But then there's times where like my page won't do hardly anything. I don't know if I changed some kind of setting or something or what, but my man Eric sent a care package for the golfers in mind, and I was like, oh cool, like I'm gonna send him a picture just to let him know I got him. And then I was actually just happened to be like on the Pages app looking for a post so I could grab a couple of things from it, and saw where he had sent me a message and said, hey, did that stuff ever come in? So I clicked on his message notification, and then it showed the picture that I sent him with a red X next to it. I never got any indication that picture never sent. I just thought maybe he just like opened it and never said anything. That is so frustrating. I know that I'm not always the most prompt at getting back to people, especially now that I'm working day shift. But stuff like that just drives me nuts, because it also cuts into the time it takes me to get back to people sometimes. But we do have a handful of topics here lined up for the night. So Casey Krasner posted on the page a bit later than the podcast was. I think it was actually right at the end of the podcast. He had posted a lot of questions, and they were all actually really good questions. So I'm just going to kind of knock those out tonight. Casey is, I can't tell you his technical title, but to my understanding, he is basically the face of the social media side of things for Pure Sports. Great guy. He's who helped me out with all my BP Hero custom Pures and all that stuff. So he's a really great guy. He posted a lot of questions on there, and I'm gonna tackle them all. These are all great questions, and it's gonna kind of lead into a segue for a couple others as well. But how's everybody doing? How was everybody's Thanksgiving? Got to start there, right? Because we did skip last week. I know it bummed a lot of people out, but man, I just had too many irons in the fire, basketball games, and this going on and that going on, and my word, got bowling league, basketball games, and let's see what else. We had something else going on last week too. There's so much, it all just runs together. Somebody was like, oh, I'm glad it's Wednesday. We only got, we're done working. I was like, hell, I came to work Wednesday thinking I had to go to work the next day. Like, I had no clue it was already Wednesday. Stuff just runs together. Nice and relaxed, just spend it with the immediate family. Yeah, and that's basically what we did too. So we went to my wife has a very large family on both sides, her mother's and her father's side. And we went over to kind of her father's side of things on the Saturday before Thanksgiving and got together with all of them, and then just did Thanksgiving with my parents. That was literally all that was there with my parents on the Wednesday, and then Thursday went over and did Thanksgiving lunch with her mother's side of the family, and it was a good time. We had, the traditional like Thanksgiving style stuff for most of them. I will say on the Saturday with her dad's side, they got crazy. Hey, listen, what's your thoughts on meatloaf for Thanksgiving? Because we did they did some meatloaf, had meatloaf over there, and I'm gonna tell you something. That thing hit hard. I love meatloaf, I always have, and my wife isn't a big fan of it, so we don't eat it very much. And that was one of my mom's staples when I was a kid. Meatloaf, you get the ketchup on top, you bake it, you put some more ketchup on. Oh man, loved it, absolutely loved it. Like, I'm sitting here, like, my mouth was watering, just sitting here thinking about it. And they had meatloaf over there. I was like, what? No way. I think I made 3 trips just for the meatloaf. It was so good. And then from a parent's side of things, we're always kind of on like an unorthodox family. It's like, oh, you got to have turkey for Thanksgiving and ham for Christmas and this and that and carry on. And we did. I have to see if I can find the picture now. I'm not gonna sit here and dig for it, but so we had barbecue wings, chicken wings. We had ribs, had spare ribs, had egg noodles. Gosh, what else was there? So many things. I'm drawing so blank. Oh, they had a gigantic pan of roasted vegetables. Had a bunch of those. Gosh, I'm gonna have to look this picture up now just so I can see. It's kind of driving me nuts. Like, there was a bunch of food on the table, and for whatever reason, I can't remember a damn thing that was on it. So let's see. That's not it. That's not it. I'm trying. What's up, Gio? How you doing, man? Did you have a good Thanksgiving, my friend? We're sitting here talking about what we ate for Thanksgiving and all the things we did to eat and hurt ourselves. Here we go. Oh, yeah, all right. So we had rolls. My daughter, by request, got spaghetti and meatballs because that's what she asked for Thanksgiving, and my mom made it for her. My son wanted the chicken wings, so he got his chicken wings. And I asked for a meatloaf, and I didn't get a meatloaf. I was pissed. So we had... Oh, we had a big old like Olive Garden style salad. That was really good. Had egg noodles and stuffing, big old thing of fried vegetables and ribs. Dude, it was bomb. We all had pie afterwards. Well, sorry, they had pie. I hurt myself eating the main courses. I didn't have room for nothing else. Jason, yeah, we all want to know what Grumpy Snacks made. Yeah, for real. Him and his food posts and everything. What did he make? Is he in here? I noticed he hasn't been showing up for the podcast, and we're gonna have to let him know if he shows up in here tonight that we're disappointed in him for not showing up more regular. No doubt about that. But glad everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We're gonna roll into things very lightly here. We're gonna tread lightly with things and get the topic started. First thing we got to talk about, I got to keep y'all up to date on what we're doing outside of softball as well. This drives Brian nuts. If Brian is listening to these podcasts, dude, like I feel like you probably think I'm doing this just to antagonize you. It's driving Brian nuts. Like I'm doing bowling and golfing and all this other stuff. Like there's really no time for like I shouldn't say there's no time. Like there's no like open time available for softball because like we're not playing. There's no tournaments going on. Tournaments that I want to play in anyway. Like they're doing these. It's going to be a topic I'm going to cover in a little bit. It's like a tournament. They're doing tournaments at like Little League baseball parks. Basically like an unlimited deal. And to me, that just doesn't sound fun. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So I've been doing the golfing thing, and then I got into bowling. Like literally, it was like, hey, what do you think about bowling? Oh yeah, I don't know. You know, I knew this friend of mine that used to do a bowling league. I was like, hey, we should get a team together for the bowling league. And within like a matter of an hour, we had 5 guys together for the bowling league, and they let us in like 10 weeks late. I don't know what happened, but next thing I know, I've got 2 bowling balls and a pair of shoes and a bag and all kinds of other stuff, and we're out here bowling the game of our lives. I had a clean game, which if I'm not real big on bowling terminology, I'm not going to sit here and try and sound like I am. But I had a clean game through 8 frames. And for those that don't know, a clean game is basically you haven't left a single pin behind. You've had a spare or a strike in every frame. I was all the way through 8 of 10 frames, and then I choked. I choked so bad. I got an 8 and I left a 610, and then I got an 8 and left a 610 in the 10th frame, and ended up bowling like a 195 or a 198 or something like that. I didn't even break 200 bowling a clean game through 8. I was so mad. And I don't know why either, because it's funny to me is like this bowling thing is just so we can all go talk crap and yell at each other and act like idiots. But like, I guess it's just one of those things, like if I'm going to go do it, I want to be good at it. I don't want to be the best, but I want to be sufficient, you might say. And sometimes you get hung up in things, you know. I wasn't like mad, like throwing stuff around or like pouting or anything like that. But it's just like, man, you're right there, you know. It's just like golf in a way, in terms of it's that one game that keeps you coming back. It's in golf, it's that one shot that keeps you coming back, you know. Or maybe even some people in like the softball scene of things. Probably nobody listening to a podcast, because if they're like, you know, on the cusp of quitting, they're probably not listening to this. But if they are, hey, thanks for stopping in. But, you know, sometimes, like, you might be on the down and outs in softball thinking, like, you know, why am I doing this? Is this for me? This isn't even fun. Or, you know, I'm not hitting well. Do I even want to play anymore? And then you'll have that one tournament or that one game, or you'll make that one play, or, you know, you'll start hitting the cover off the ball for a few games, and it's like, okay, so this is why I did this. It's kind of the same thing with the bowling thing and the golf thing. But the bowling thing right now is just because it's the off season. It's not like we can go out and go play softball. It's almost dark when we get off work, and I wanted to have something to do through the wintertime. Gio wants to know what my average is. I was a 69 handicap going into the week before, and then this past week I bowled a 187, a 195, and then I just fell off. I think I got flustered from the 195 game. I think I bowled like a 148, 149, something like that. Whatever that would average out to be. I know I kind of like killed my handicap there, but I don't know. I just don't want to suck, you know? So I would say my handicap would be, if they go off like your last 3 games for your handicap, my handicap's probably going to be fairly low. So they basically take the handicap. To my understanding, your score is a 220 minus your average score, and then I believe that makes your handicap, if I remember correctly. So since I bowled a 187 and a 195, and even the 147, my handicap's probably going to be pretty high if they do it week to week. I don't know how they do it. Oh, there's Grumpy Snacks right there. Snacks, why didn't we get any food picks for Thanksgiving, man? And not sandbagging good enough. Is that a thing? Do people actually like sandbag their bowling handicaps? That's crazy. Like, that's absolute madness. Maybe that's why those guys were so mad the second week. I rolled fairly decent our second week. We played like the tryhards of the league. The guys that were like, well, okay, listen. And not to brag, but I was a pretty average wee bowler. Dude, hey, listen. This one time, I got really drunk with this friend of mine. And Dude, he was so drunk. I was like slapping him on the arm to wake him up so he could throw in Wii bowling. He kicked my ass. I was waking him up so he would throw because he was so drunk. And I was just about there too. I was waking him up to throw. His arm was hanging off the couch and he would just like fling his arm. And then like, you know, if he didn't get a strike, I'd have to like, you know, wake him up again so he could shoot a spare. He beat me. I was so mad. That's the only thing I think of when I play Wii bowling. Good times though. But it's kind of funny. You can relate to things in the aspect of, like, I show up to this bowling league. Literally, we named our team the Unicorn Cowboys. That is a 100% real thing. That was for my daughter. She was big on unicorns, and she looked at me one day. She was playing with her toys. I mean, it's like having the time of her life at the kitchen table. She looks up at me, and she goes, "Dad." I said, "Yeah, sweetie." She goes, "When I grow up, I want to be a unicorn cowboy." I'm like, damn, okay. Well, I said, "That's very cool, sweet." I said, "I hope you get to do that." And she just goes, "Yeah." We just kept playing. So I've been looking for excuses since then to name something in the Unicorn Cowboys, and I finally found it. This bowling team. I got some t-shirts coming. It's going to be great. I had to get her one as well. It's so funny because, like, that's how not serious we're taking this. And then I kind of step back and I look at, like, guys that show up to softball league with the same mentality. It's like a chance to get out of the house and go chill with the boys, you know? And I can see now where being the team that just wants to show up and jackass around and have fun, it's not like we're like, you know, holding people up or like causing a disruption or anything like that, like some teams have been known to do in league. But we're strictly there to have fun. Yes, they're keeping score. It's just one of those deals, like I said, you don't want to suck, but you're not trying to win either. But you play against a bunch of, like, I'm going to use the term loosely, snobs. It's not like they're ever going to listen to this. And it's like how much it can suck the fun out of it. And then it kind of puts back in perspective, like, when you show up to league night, I don't care how good you are, don't act better than the game. I mean, these guys were, like, so annoyed. And, like, if you're familiar with bowling, then you know that they just went to a rule where, like, if you're a thumbless bowler, which you just use basically 2 fingers, however many fingers, but you don't use your thumb on the ball, if your ball has a thumb hole in it, you have to have a finger in it. That's a new rule that the USBC or whatever it is just came out with. And, like, these guys were calling people out on that for not having, you know, say they just bought a ball secondhand or they're using a house ball and they want to bowl thumbless. I bowl thumbless because I feel like I can spin the ball better that way. And these people, this team was like calling people out on stuff like that, or, you know, just all the little knick-knack rules and nitpicking stuff. And, like, you could tell they were biting their tongues so hard. Like, I get that that's a rule. The thumb thing is a rule. That's fine. Follow the rule. I don't have a problem with that. And them throwing a fit about it and that kind of thing is like, they're following the rules, so I expect to follow the rules too. But what this felt like is showing up to U-Trip League and somebody's using an ASA bat. Like, there's a nice way to be like, hey, just to give you a heads up, you know, you can't use that bat in this league. We have to have, like, the thumbprint stamp here. So if you don't have anything, you know, we got something you can use. There's I have done that a couple of times where it's like all they had was they had a team one night show up with BB Core baseball bats and a 32-inch fast pitch Phoenix or something like that. It was funny because that Phoenix was really good. If any of my OG guys in here are familiar with, like, the fast pitch Phoenixes or the Phoenix line in general, like back in the day with Dean Marines when guys used to swing fast pitch bats on the regular, those things were nuts. So it was funny watching them swing this 32-inch Phoenix and, like, just shitting on the ball every now and then. But there's ways that you can go about, like, trying hard and being serious and still just like sucking the fun out of stuff. Because you see teams at the softball field doing that, especially to the teams that just want to show up and jackass around and have fun. And, like, those guys borderline made it uncomfortable to be there. Because, like, the first 2 weeks, it's like we were laughing and giggling with the people we were playing against, and you know, we were, again, competing, just trying not to suck and having a good time. But these guys wouldn't talk to anybody. They wouldn't do anything. They all looked mad all the time. Like, God, don't do that. It's the same thing at the softball field. Like, I get that these guys are good bowlers. Not taking anything away from those guys. There was one guy, he was, I don't know, whatever you call it. He had 7 strikes in a row. I mean, he was like on his way to a 300 game and then just kind of fell off. But like, man, it's okay to like be good and have fun too. Or maybe like give the guys that clearly have no clue what they're doing some advice, some tips. Hey, try this, try that. What do you think of this? Try it and make the game better for everybody, not just for yourself. And it just like, it really put in perspective, like I feel so, I'm going to feel like I'm talking about myself here. I feel so good in the fact that like, I've never like looked down upon, or maybe in my opinion, maybe somebody feels otherwise if they're local and listening, or, you know, I'm sure everybody has at some point. But I don't show up to the ballpark and like look down upon someone because they don't play tournament ball, or, you know, oh, I have a YouTube channel, so you're a peasant. You know, like I'm showing up, bullshitting with anybody who wants to talk. And I'm trying hard, and most of the time, yeah, when you get to a certain point of softball, you are going to be surrounded with good players. So we can go out there and beat teams and still have fun and laugh and carry on. And, you know, you try, and I'm not out here coaching people, but if I see something that's like a, hey, quick fix, or, you know, hey, you know, keep your head in the game, you know, hey, hang in there. Like I've even been at third base before, like trying to keep a third baseman's spirits up because he just got melted like twice. And hey, get him next time. Don't hang your head, or somebody getting onto that's the other thing that drives me nuts is like somebody getting onto a player. Like if this happened. I'm a third base coach. The third baseman is out there playing, and the third baseman makes an error, and like 2 or 3 guys say something shitty to him. And you could tell that this man was frustrated. And I looked at him as, hey, fuck them. Sorry, French. Kid-friendly show. But it's like, forget them, you know? Like, they're not perfect either. Oh yeah, Snacks. Har, so funny. BP hero, not game time hero. Hey, you ain't wrong though. I mean, you're not wrong. But moral of the story. Then we'll move on. It's okay to be good and still have fun. I promise you. And the Bears got that dub on Thanksgiving Day. Yes, we sweat a lot. We were really wondering there for a little bit. I know Snacks was mad. Snacks, I think, is my only resident Bear fan in the chat here. And he was mad. He was mad the Bears won. I said, oh, that was a close one. And he sent me a message. He was mad. He's like, dang it. I said, what's the deal? Like, why are you mad? He goes, if they lost, he goes, they'd have fired Nagy. It's like, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know. At this point in the season, you're 4-7, right? I mean, is it even worth firing anybody? They should have lost on purpose. Okay, sandbagger. Just playing for draft picks now. This is a rebuilding year, right? So we got to sweat that out. Always got to talk about my Bears for a minute. Hopefully we get some Justin Fields back in the mix. Probably doesn't sound like it'll be this week either. I can't remember if they were bruised or cracked ribs. Either one sounds absolutely freaking miserable. I didn't think Dalton played terrible either. We just got to get everything on the same page. But moving on to softball, because that's what you're here for, and that's what I promised you. This is a softball-oriented podcast. So going back to Casey's post that he made that had some questions in it. If we don't get them all covered here, then we'll roll them into next week as well, because it kind of gives me some topics and stuff too. Sometimes I like not having to come up with all the topics, because then I feel like it's like if I find the topic, I feel like it's me preaching about something I want to speak about, as opposed to if somebody's giving me topics and giving me questions, then it's something where I can weigh in with an opinion, as opposed to telling you how I think it should be, like preaching in that regard. I don't know. I'm weird like that sometimes. But so I posted last week, said like topics and questions and things like that for the podcast. And our friend Casey from Pure Sports posted a big thing of questions, and I like I said, I want to say I was already into the podcast, or maybe the podcast is even almost already over, but I did want to get to them because there was a lot of good ones in there. So we're just going to tackle them. We're going to start at the top and just work our way down. I did rearrange them a little bit, but his first question is how to get softball recognized as a mainstream sport. And I feel like that's an interesting one. Like if we're talking like mainstream in terms of something that's going to be on ESPN or be featured on news channels or even talked about or followed on ESPN, just off to the side. I feel like it would take a lot of sponsorship money. Sponsorship money as in not necessarily like the money that gets thrown around for the teams, but the money that's getting thrown around for advertising. You're going to have to find a niche of advertisements because, you stop and you think like, yeah, you see some pretty pointless commercials on ESPN sometimes, but you got to stop and think like ESPN just doesn't take like, commercials for pots and pans and throw them into a football game. There's got to be a market there. There's got to be a market of people to watch. There's got to be a market of people that they can market this game to, and the advertising as well. The border battle was an excellent start, and I would be curious to know, like numbers wise, how that did on the ESPN side of things. But things like that, maybe do the border battles, or maybe even like the Major World Series. I understand that tournament is an absolute grinder. I'm talking like absolute grinder in the fact that you really got to be a fan to sit through all the games that don't matter to get to the games that do matter. But maybe they feature, the losers bracket final, and then they can do the championship game the next day and all that stuff. Maybe find a way to feature those on, start on like ESPN Plus or something like that. I'll see Snacks said something about the border battle too. But I definitely think there's a market in things like the Major World Series, or you got things like the Smoky. The Smoky would be a great one too, because it's like a spectacle. It's another unlimited deal, but you see, and that's what's going to have to sell. It's going to have to be something unlimited, and you don't know going in. It might be a deal where, going into this, you've got like 7 major teams. And I know 7's a big, I couldn't tell you the last time there was 7 major teams. But, you got like an X amount of major teams. What if none of the major teams make it? I have seen, I won't speak on the conference level because I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But I have seen tournaments where the big dogs all get knocked out and then it's a pillow fight at the end. No offense to the teams that make it to a championship game. Especially where there's big teams there. Somebody had to beat those big teams. But I have seen it where teams that shouldn't be there are there, and it's an absolute pillow fight. That's a hard sell. That is a hard sell. And it would be hard to like, oh, well, this sucked. I'm not going to watch this again. But then there's also the side of things where you can market this better. You could take guys. There's slow pitch is evolved to the point now where there are a lot of collegiate athletes, former minor leaguers, and even a few former major leaguers now playing slow pitch softball. Like, I feel like you could use, you can't say, oh, well, this player's playing that player's playing that. Because if they were a household name, they would be on TV playing baseball right now. But market it as something like that, former pros, or you can make a segue around that, former pros, collegiate athletes, that kind of thing, because so many people that aren't familiar with the game associate slow pitch softball with fat slobs who do nothing but hit the ball far. And that's where it would be kind of an odd vibe to certain people. I do know there are people out there that aren't impressed with guys that can stand around and hit home runs all day long, or play, watch the stadium stuff, because there is bits of it where it's just a home run derby. And I still enjoy watching it, but Like, show off a player's skill. Because, like I said, people think softball is just a bunch of fat slobs out there hitting the ball as far as they can. But it's so much more than that. Like, you've got guys who can pick a blade of grass and hit it with every swing they take. Find a tournament that can help showcase that a little bit. Find ways to showcase that stuff. Maybe you could do the conference championships. The conference championships would be a good one because you're still limited to 16 home runs, not like the Major World Series where it's basically just unlimited. They just let them eat. And another one, and no offense to anybody that has commentated a televised game, but you got to get somebody in the booth with like knowledge of the game. Like I think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Don Cooper's been in there for a couple of those. And I'm telling you, I could listen to that guy talk for days about softball. Absolute days. And you get somebody like him and somebody else familiar with the game. Even like DW. Get Coop and DW in there talking about the game, trying to like show you and teach you things as you're going. Because you got to think, like, for the first at least a little while, we're going to have people tuning in like slow pitch softball. Ha! And then they turn it on and the guy takes a 3-pitch walk, and it's like, well, that was only 3 pitches. Or, wanting to know, like, why is he out if he hit a home run? Why is he pump faking? Why is he doing that? It's explain that stuff. And Coop Coop would be great at doing that stuff. And then you've got, obviously he's going to know all the players as well. And then you would have somebody like DW whose knowledge of all the players there that he's watching. DW knows everybody in those freaking videos, man. I'm telling you. This guy used to play here. This guy does that. This guy plays here. This guy's from here. And it's just because he's so familiar with the sport. But you got to have guys that are familiar with the sport more than just calling it a couple of times a year. That would be big for making it mainstream as far as something that you could watch on TV. And also something that would maybe help with that. Not that I'm volunteering my services, but I would for a couple tournaments just to see how it would go, right? Have an actual crew covering some of these games where it's just a camera hanging on the fence. It would be something more of a production style thing. You're going to need cameras. You're going to need somebody running a switchboard. You're going to need more than just a person sitting there talking about a game. But it's doable. If I can sit here in the comfort of my home and screen cap a game off of a Facebook feed, put a scoreboard down there with it, very non-professional looking, might I add. It's not like I'm saying mine is the best presentation stuff ever. But there's opportunity there. Even if I was like, even if I knew that it would be rebroadcasted or something like that, or I wouldn't get in trouble for rebroadcasting it, like I could schedule it and say, I'm calling the championship game of the Smoky. Everybody tune in this time, be on this channel, and let it get its traction that way. And gain speed from there. There's a million different ways you could do that. But I do feel like something would be there to help get softball recognized as a mainstream sport, and I feel like that's what it would take. It would take somebody with a knowledge of the game, commentating the game, and starting with the right marketed tournaments, you might say. And then, obviously, I spend a lot of time talking about the conference here, Conference USSSA. And one of Casey's other questions is, do smaller sanctions help or hurt the sport? The sport as a whole, I don't think so. But if you're trying to market a certain thing, then smaller sanctions could in turn kind of hurt a little bit. But we're talking something as far as like conference softball. The small sanctions don't do anything for that. But like I said, on a lower, smaller level, I think a smaller sanction, anybody that's getting anybody involved, any way to get new players involved or keep players coming back, or even like they started doing like 35 and over programs or 40 and over programs and things like that. Even different programs within the same sanction is beneficial in my opinion. Yes, you're going to have your gray areas where you're going to have teams sandbagging and doing things like that are bad for the sport. But I think that comes with the territory. Comes with the territory no matter where you go. And also, real quick, just one thing. Speaking of that, one thing I do want to say that would make softball extremely marketable. This is going to be a very unpopular opinion because it opens the door for a lot of controversy and crying and whining and everything else. You got to find a way to have more major teams. Even if you had 10 major teams, I understand that the major level would no longer be as strong, you might say. But just even spreading even half of those players out to other rosters, or spreading, say you take 5 Resmondo guys and then, they're all rated major, obviously. So you can have like 5 major players and then you fill in the rest from there. Think about how many guys play at that level. And yes, I understand that like stuff would trickle down. It all comes down to money too. You're not going to be able to find sponsors for 10 major teams. That is a hurdle you have to cross. Yeah, see, Adam just said the same thing. That is a hurdle you would have to cross. But if we're talking something that's marketable for TV, then there's money involved there as well. It's not like, you're watching a spectacle of something that's being done for free. If there's TV money involved, then now we're talking money that could potentially be put into the teams. It all kind of gives back to itself a little bit in a way. If you can have more major teams, then you get the TV money. The TV money helps the teams along with all the sponsors as well. It all kind of goes hand in hand. But do the smaller sanctions hurt or help? Smaller sanctions keep people playing, in my opinion, especially there's like smaller sanctions popping up where, guys want to go show up and sandbag, or again, you're going to have sandbagging wherever you go, but it's a chance to keep softball going and make sanctions that are easy to sign up for. Maybe just do like an upper and a lower. So many people, I shouldn't say so many people, but I know a good number of people that have skipped out on a U-Trip tournament. All right, so the U-Trip tournament from the standpoint of, well, I don't want to sign up and register a team. I don't want to get online and do all that. I just want to play. I understand there's legalities and waivers and all these things that go along with that, but make that easy to do. And there's directors that will make it so easy for you. So easy for you if you just reach out. But a lot of people, like the league guys that may have a tournament at their ballpark that weekend, the director could go around and say, hey, if you need help signing up, let me know. I can do this, I can do that. But Adam also brings up another point that I've actually got written down here on this, is if the smaller sanctions kind of get their stuff together and kind of get a little bit of traction, then guess what that's going to do for the bigger sanctions. It's going to make the bigger sanctions say, man, hey, we better get our shit together here. So in the right way, it could push the bigger sanctions to do more as well. I do think smaller sanctions are good for the sport, but I won't say great. And he also, one of the other questions is the Challenge Cup beneficial to the sport? The Challenge Cup is an interesting one to me. And for those that aren't aware of what the Challenge Cup is, essentially, now this isn't every state. I would have to look up and see what teams are represented. I do believe in the lower levels, almost every state is represented, but this goes through USSSA. And basically, every state gets a chance to put together a team to represent said state in Florida at Vieira. So Missouri will have an E team, Illinois will have an E team, Arkansas will have an E team, and so on and so forth, all the way up through, I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I want to say E through B, I believe. E through B, or is it E through C and then upper? However that works, the further you get up in levels, the states kind of start combining because there is not as many higher level players. But again, you're going to have people doing crappy stuff no matter which way it's diced. You got people registering to live one place or registering to live another, and sponsors, big time sponsors. It's rumored that big time sponsors have tried paying out money to say, oh, well, I live here, register yourself here so you can come play for us. Like, you're going to have that no matter what. You really are. And it's kind of funny because it dwells down to school districts. It's just like a school district. Everybody's heard of the kid that, the booster offered X amount of money to the family for the kid to move here and go to school here and that kind of thing. It happens in college. It happens in high school. And it happens in the Challenge Cup. I think the Challenge Cup is a good showcase. Sorry, I'm reading the chat here. Yeah, Adam, I do agree North Carolina and Georgia should not have combined. I will agree with you on that. But I do feel like it's also a good way to showcase to a certain extent, this state versus that state, because there's always that stuff. Everybody says, oh, the teams down south, they sandbag a lot. Or the teams up north, all they're full of sandbaggers. And all right, well, here's a chance to put together 10 of your best sandbaggers. Come down here and play. Come down here and play. Show us what you got. And it's also kind of a cool opportunity to a lot of people that won't have the opportunity otherwise to maybe go to Vieira. I have heard that there are people willing, and I'm fine with this. There are sponsors willing to pay for Challenge Cup teams to travel and pay, this and that and whatever else. Like, that stuff's fine with me. But when it comes to sponsors wanting to pay, hey, why don't you say you live in Indiana? I'll give you, I'll let you register. You can live at Jim Bob's house down the street. I'll give you 10 grand and you can come play for us for the weekend. What do you think? And Eric says it is kind of a money grab for you, Trip. I do agree with that to an extent, but what isn't a money grab? At the end of the day, they're all there to make money. That's bottom line. If it wasn't making money, they wouldn't do it. But the Challenge Cup is cool. I enjoy the idea of the Challenge Cup, and it's mostly at the D&E levels. It's not like I know any of the guys playing, but it's an opportunity for something you wouldn't normally do, because you've how many people have been to tournaments? I've even seen some memes and stuff floating around where you go to a tournament 2 states away and you play 2 local teams. Like, God, it gets so old. Well, here's a chance to say you're playing D for the Challenge Cup. Here's a chance to play against 50 other states, and yes, you could end up playing people from a state over. And if it's, guys from state lines, yada, yada. But the opportunity is there for competition you're not familiar with. And I feel like that's a cool part of it and an aspect of it as well. One of Casey's questions here that I'm still kind of tumbling around with answering, and it might be the last one for the podcast here. Do got to get running. But he wants to know what manufacturers should do to help grow the sport as a joint effort.
We must pay homage to him.
Man, listen. I'm gonna keep it 100% real here. I understand that this day and age of social media has changed a lot of things. But what happened to grassroots players, factory hitters, Worth reps, like a guy that loves the brand? Worth finds out about said guy and it's like, hey, we heard you like the brand. We see you repping. We see you doing this. We see you doing that. Why don't you be our field rep? Why don't you be the guy that they can answer all the questions, and we'll send you stuff for everybody to try, and we can get you some of the best pricing to be able to help these people out. Helps the brand, helps the people, keeps people engaged. I feel like that would help grow the sport in the aspect of you got people wanting to play the game for the right reasons. I know somebody may not, some of you may not agree with this or not understand where I'm going with this. But man, back in the day, it's like it used to be a thing. Like everybody was like showing out, trying to be a DeMarini factory hitter. The DeMarini factory hitter program is really the one that comes to mind. And Snacks is here, and he has spoke of that a couple of times. But Grumpy Snacks used to be a factory hitter for DeMarini. And funny enough, to my knowledge and recollection, Headbanger Sports was started by a group of factory hitters for DeMarini. The factory hitter program kind of went away, turned into the grassroots program, and basically just turned into a pyramid program. You had grassroots players, and you had factory reps, and you had factory hitters and all kinds of other shit, to my knowledge. But stuff like that would help grow the game in the aspect of like making people want to play the game for the right reasons, keeping people engaged, keeping new players into the game, making people understand that you don't have to spend an arm and a leg and pay retail for things. I understand the point of retail and companies charging retail and sporting goods companies charging retail. And the idea that somebody at a field selling stuff kind of negates the whole idea behind sporting goods stores and can kind of take the money out of those pockets. But at the same time, how many people, I shouldn't say how many people, but if somebody knows they can play the game at an affordable rate, it's like, oh, I don't want to buy the bats, I don't want to buy the balls, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. If they know they can go somewhere and have someone help them that's willing to help them, that keeps people engaged. I don't know. It just, I'm that way, so I picture other people being that way. So that's why I always try and like answer questions and help people out in any way that I feel like I can. Hey, I can drop this off if you want to try it out for a week. Take it to league night. I tried doing a couple of bat demos back in the day, and I got burned on that. And here's where kind of like the social media side of things gets weird with it, because I've done a couple of what you may call bat demos, and people are like, oh, this bat is freaking sick, man. What's the name of this bat? So they write it down or they take a picture of it, and the next thing you know, they show up at league a couple weeks later with their favorite bat from the bat demo. It's like, oh, cool, man, you got your bat. Where'd you get that at? Oh, I got it from so-and-so. Your competitor, basically. It's like, damn, that stings. That stings. But manufacturers should try to find a way to get into like the D&E level stuff more. Be involved in the D&E level stuff, whether it be field reps, whether it be hosting tournaments through U-Trip. I mean, good grief. You're trying to tell me that these bat companies aren't, I won't say in bed with U-Trip, but aren't all with U-Trip on the standpoint to where like, hey, ring ring, this is Mike and Bat Company. We want to host a challenge tournament using, everybody has to use our bats, and U-Trip's like, all right, bet. Sanction tournament, here we go. The Mike and Classic. It's that easy. Hell, I've heard of that stuff happen before, and people go sign up just for a chance to try the bats. You get to play games with them, and like every Mike and offering would be there on the fence and things like that. That stuff is definitely something that manufacturers could do to help grow the sport, because that again could be a situation where you could get guys that don't play tournaments or don't only play league to come out and play in this tournament for a chance to like try a bunch of new bats, and the next thing you know, you got some guys hooked on playing tournament softball now. That would help grow the sport. I don't know. I'm an odd duck, man. Really and honestly. But that's what I feel about that. Get involved at the lower levels, because so many people at the lower levels don't realize how high the softball goes. You got bat companies sponsoring the A teams, double A teams, major teams, B teams. But some of these people are just like, it's like, oh, well, that guy gets paid to play softball. And they're like, what? You mean he actually gets paid to do this? They don't have a clue. but that's where you see all the bat companies flocking to, and I get it to an extent because it's easy marketing. Because if people do find out, oh, so-and-so gets paid to play, and they see so-and-so swinging a certain bat, well, guess what? They've got a really good chance of selling a lot of those bats. That takes place around here now. But if you're getting involved at the lower levels doing the same things, what an opportunity to get more stuff out the door, help everybody out, and kind of take things back to the way they used to be. Maybe that's because, they say softball is dying. I won't say softball is dying, but softball is definitely changing. Maybe go back to when things were a little bit simpler, you might say. I don't know. Ponder on that. Follow up with your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks, you guys, for stopping in and checking out the podcast and listening to me pointlessly rant for 51 minutes now. I will catch you next week as long as there is no basketball games. Almost done with basketball. Then we'll see what else is on the agenda, right? Swing hard in case you hit it. BP Hero, catch you next week.